Hello, everybody. This is Stephen Whitfield with Drilling Contractor, and we're here at the 2023 IADC Annual General Meeting in Austin, Texas. As we're filming this, we've just wrapped up the meeting, and I'm joined by one of the last guys to speak at the conference, but one of the more interesting presentations, Jim Rollyson of Raymond James. He gave one of the market outlooks that we tend to see at conferences like this. And we're going to talk a little bit about, well, the markets, where everything is going, what to expect. Jim, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be here.
So you had given in your presentation sort of a bullish outlook long-term on oil and gas for many reasons. And I guess we'll ask a little bit about some of this stuff going on right now. One of the things you had talked about was just sort of oil price. You know, sort of the things that might sustain a higher oil price moving forward. Where do you see oil price kind of going? Do you see it going higher? Do you see it kind of staying flat? Where is it going?
Yeah, we generally think that oil is going to be in a pretty sustained higher price environment, kind of call it 70 to 100 type of number. Over the next few years, partly because of the underinvestment by the industry for a long time, partly because of the capital discipline by especially the U.S. players, and the fact that between that and Russian sanctions that are keeping them from growth, you're taking the two most active growth providers over the last decade out of the equation, which means oil is going to have to come from everywhere else, offshore, international, et cetera. A, that tends to take longer. B, that tends to be at a generally higher, cost for the risk associated with that longer time horizon. So if you were to put, $80 to $100 type of number on it for the next 5 years, I think that's a reasonable expectation.
Let me ask a little bit about Russia. Obviously, there's a lot of question marks going on right there. Of course, you mentioned the sanctions and sort of where's the production going to come from, where's supply going to come from. What are we looking at with Russia in the next few years?
Yeah, for the time being, they're abiding generally by the cuts that they're participating with OPEC plus. And so they've ratcheted back a little bit of supply. They obviously didn't see much of a roll-off from the sanctions like most people, including us, thought. But without Western technology, their ability to grow production in a sustainable way doesn't seem to be there over the next few years. So we'll have to see how the Russia-Ukraine situation plays out if they eventually get past sanctions, if Western companies are willing to go back there. You've got guys like Schlumberger that are still there, but Halliburton, Baker, et cetera, that have actually sold out of what their ownership was there. So it's kind of interesting longer-term challenges for their ability to grow supply, but probably stickier than we'd all like to think in the near term.
Interesting. You mentioned OPEC plus cuts. One of the major players out there, Saudi Arabia, as another country that you kind of discussed in your presentation here at the conference as one to sort of look for. What are we going to see there?
I think Saudi will continue to manage the market. So they took oil off the market this year in defense of oil prices. Obviously, they're spending a lot of capital trying to get towards a 13 million barrel a day capacity figure by the end of 27. And I think we will see them bring supply back that's tied to price. So if the market tightens up, prices are stronger, we're at kind of $90, $100 type of Brent prices, we may see them ease back some of that production in the market. If oil stays where it is at this current moment after this week's drop, they probably don't bring supply back. So I think it's very price dependent. And I think given that U.S. producers are being more disciplined, you have Saudi and the OPEC plus members are less worried about capacity coming from the U.S. and losing market share, which was what drove bad behavior from them in the past. I think that actually helps clean that up and them really managing the market.
Now we'll get to the U.S. in a little bit. Let me ask a little bit about natural gas. I mean, obviously, we saw, I guess, a while back, we saw a bit of a drop with Henry Hub and maybe haven't quite gotten to where many analysts have said we should probably be getting to at this point. But at the natural gas market, where are we going there? What are we seeing?
Yeah, you can partly see that reflected in the strip. So we went from, $8 peak last summer to we were $5, $6 in December, got down to the $2 range back in the early part of this year, really driven by a very mild winter, and the extended outage at Freeport LNG were probably the two main drivers of that. We've seen the rig count roll over in places like the Haynesville. You've gone from 70 rigs down into the 30 rig kind of category. And so that's going to be a self-correcting problem. And one of the reasons that the strip is gradually getting higher starting next year and into 25 is not only has supply growth come down, but you've got this LNG export capacity build out that's going to take capacity up by a 2x factor by around the end of 28. And as we started getting those in late 24, really ramping up in 25 through 28, that's going to be a big demand driver and should relink prices in the U.S. with some of the international prices. And there's obviously, we're kind of like $3 gas today at Henry Hub, and you've got something in the neighborhood of $20 gas in Europe and Asia right now. So somewhere in the middle of those meet. We probably aren't going to $20 gas, but something with a 5 handle plus, which is very good for all producers, should be something in sights in 25 plus.
And lastly, we are a conference of drilling contractors here. And the one thing a lot of U.S.-based drilling contractors as well, so a lot of people want to know about rig counts. Where are we seeing that going here in the U.S.? Are we seeing it staying flat? Are we going to see a little bit of an increase? What are we seeing?
Yeah, the good news is that even with capital discipline being displayed by the operators, which means we're probably not going to see the rig count behave in the same fashion that we're used to, meaning it doesn't chase commodity prices higher at the same pace. We do think it's going to go up in 24 and 25. We think it has to, just because right now with kind of this low 600 rig count number, we're not going to see any meaningful supply growth on oil or natural gas, and so that's probably going to have to reverse course. The one difference today, though, is not only are the public operators not chasing commodity prices that are much more even-keeled, but the private operators, which drove a lot of the growth in 2001 and 2021 and 2022, were actually doing so to boost production so they could get cash flows up when some of the private equity-backed operators actually sold out to the publics. And inventory life, core inventory life, is a very key factor for all of the public guys today because it's really a driver of valuation in the public markets. So we think it's going to be this kind of gradual grind higher, but not at the same pace that we're used to seeing.
Well, I guess any grind higher is a good grind higher for this industry, for drilling contractors out there. Well, Jim, thank you so much for giving us this insight and letting us know kind of where everything's going to go. Thank you.
Certainly. Glad to do it.
And thank you for visiting Drilling Contractor.